Hello, and welcome to another session of San Francisco by Night Hunter the Vigil. When last we left, we saw Team 1 coming out of the bunker of horrors, so to speak. But whatever became of Team 2, and what did they witness? Well, today we might find out a little bit about what happened, as one of the supposedly missing members of the team has a talk with Mr. X and is informed on what exactly happened down there in that dark bunker. We now take it away to Mr. X's office, where Mr. Nathaniel Banks has come in to have a little bit of an update and a chit chat. After the knock on the door, you hear from inside, "Come on in, Mr. Banks."
Yeah, the door opens. He steps inside at a particular pace. It's kind of difficult to describe. He doesn't take his time, but it's not too fast either.
Everything okay, Mr. Banks? I know last night was a bit of a conundrum.
Oh, a little bit of adrenaline here, a little bit of watching the door there, but I think I'm holding up.
Indeed. Now tell me, I've talked with a few other members of Team 2, but what was the last thing you heard over the radio before it cut out when the teams went down?
He'll close the door and have a look about for a seat.
There are several.
He'll pick one kind of close enough
Okay.
to talk. Not too much, honestly.
Yeah, it was a little bit quiet and everything was going pretty perfectly until the Group 1 hit down to level 7. That's when things started getting a little weird. Apparently there was some sort of static EMP that Power Core had popped it off, and then Team 1 got into a firefight with Power Core, at least if I'm reading the report correctly. You guys didn't have a whole lot of opposition up top, just one or two people. Team 1 apparently ran into quite a bit of things. After finding out the bunker was testing biological weapons, they found a little group of Power Core members trying to siphon off one of the computers, and like I said, got into a firefight. No one got seriously hurt except for one, and Power Core seemed to have retreated. We eventually rounded them up and took care of that business, so to speak. But what was really crazy was the report that Team 1 sent me afterwards. I got it here. Yes. Apparently, they encountered some sort of supernatural creature that was, and I quote, living in the wall. It was somehow able to avoid them, and there was some kind of odd portal that they found. So we were able to shut it down and seal it off, at least for the moment. But as for what exactly they were doing down in that bunker, a lot of the records were deleted or omitted. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, Mr. Banks, would you? After all, Team 2 was in the server room.
I might.
See? Well, I suppose it's for the better. Granted, I am a bit curious as to what they were working on down there.
I have a feeling that the weapons were bad enough. Although a firefight, that's definitely out of Team 1's wheelhouse.
Well, Team 1 and Team 2 kind of became fused on this operation, but we still split it up into two teams. The majority of your compatriots were down in Team 1.
Well then, I trust no one was seriously hurt.
No, just one. We did have Michael, one of our newer agents, go down there, and he took a shot to the chest, armor-piercing round, went through everything he had. Luckily, we had a medical on facility, so now he's currently recovering in our medical facility. Granted, that man is proven to have many talents, so he is not one to be lost.
So, what would Nathan know about all that just yet?
Say again.
What would he know about all that?
Nathan knows that there was a couple new people that were brought in that were a little bit less combat oriented, but more information and kind of stealth kind of people. And even so much so that apparently one of the members that was brought on was a photographer and journalist that is now working for Section 9 as well. And apparently he's really good at his job. So Section 9 has been starting to branch out into less of the more military and more into the information gathering, media / investigation.
What's the other group called? They're all into cameras.
Paparazzi?
No. I don't remember what they're called, but they're another group that's all into exposing the truth, and they're kind of weird as far as hunters go. Most of them are about keeping it a secret.
Indeed, and nonetheless, well done on the Ashwood Abbey. I didn't think they would take to that. But they've stayed out of our business so far for the past week, and everything's been going well so far.
Their leader said she wanted to be at the table. She wanted cooperation.
Indeed, she's actually been outcast from quite a bit of the Ashwood Abbey societies, central and eastern. She seems to be a bit of a revolutionary amongst them. Tell me, what was your first thoughts on the Sons of David when you met them?
They seem very serious about what they're doing, whatever it is they're doing.
Nods. And what was your first impression? Tell me your professional opinion on the leader of the Ashwood Abbey here in San Francisco. What did you think of her?
Well, and Nathan has a few memories probably of freedom fighters or insurgents, depending upon who you ask. She's a bit of a vigilante, I'm gathering.
I see.
She's
Well,
here to do things her way, and so long as everyone is willing to go along with it, everything's fine.
right. That was similar to the impression that I got from her as well. Well, then.
It just seems fortunate that her way appears to revolve around their school, the grounds, nearby locations, and for now, that seems to be it.
Let's hope it stays that way. Last thing we need is for civil war conflict here for that. And it appears one of our operatives have gone missing, Mr. Flynn.
Flynn.
He was the computer hacker, or one of our electronic specialists.
The one who showed up with cookies?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how could I forget? Oh, he was quite the character.
Indeed. I suppose that happens when and he starts mumbling. And then he's like, well, For any case, we have a few people looking into it. And then, of course, there are those disappearances happening out in the woods that are still need to be looked into. That'll probably be next on my agenda after we figure out what's going on with the police force here in San Francisco.
I didn't pin him as a runner when I saw him the first time.
Well, I don't think he ran. I think he's more stuck his nose in somewhere he shouldn't have, and now he's undergoing the consequences.
I guess what I'm saying is he seemed attached at the hip to the other one.
Yeah, but sometimes attachments can be overbearing, and those who are too attached seek to, well, leave their attachments.
Hmm. Well, either way. Hopefully he doesn't end up in a body bag. That would be unfortunate.
Yeah, that would be very unfortunate. I don't think that will happen, hopefully, but you got to take precautions. I
So,
believe that, yes.
to his previous question, what all kind of information was Nathan able to lift?
Stuff about biological weapons, testing it on humans, and there was some stuff that you didn't quite understand, but mostly the gist of it was they were trying to regrow body parts and limbs quicker, and apparently they had succeeded, but something had gone wrong and they had shut down the facility. And as for what went wrong, that was not sure because that was the corrupt files you found, and those ones are still being gone through. According to any of your companions that you talked to, they say that there was something down there with them that was killing and ripping apart the power core in half. They even have video footage of one of the security guards back before the facility closed getting ripped in half by something that moved too fast for the camera to see.
Well, Nathan has seen some very odd modifications. But something like that, very strange. And assuming off camera he's looked into it.
Yeah, you've studied the footage, and it's really hard to do because it's really corrupted. But if you look at it closely, it looks like a giant dog standing on two legs.
I mean, not so much trying to slow it down to figure out what it was. It was just more like running through possibilities that could even be.
You could, well, if that's some biological engineering, that's some crazy shit. You've never seen that before. Usually anything that gets engineered takes on a robotic or still a humanoid form. But that was engineering with animal genes. You haven't heard of that taking place yet. You know that they tried it back in 2050, but it was outlawed pretty quickly because it wasn't working with human genes. And you don't know if they ever managed to crack it or not, but if they did, that's some secretive stuff because you don't remember seeing that anywhere. All of the cybernetic augmentations you've seen have been add-ons or attachments or even enhancements. Heck, even putting a human brain into a cybernetic body, kind of like RoboCop or Ed 209, is not out of the ordinary. Expensive, but not out of the ordinary. But seeing something like that's a full-on uh, bio, like complete BioWare rewrite.
They've been enhancing humans, but they haven't been splicing genes.
Exactly. Splicing genes is a whole other thing.
And even if you could enhance a human body with some cosmetics, we'll say, enhancing someone to the point where they could move that quickly just isn't possible.
So it would seem.
And forgive me for slipping a bit. This is Mr. X, so he's speaking with the Section 9 then.
Mhm.
All right, so he'll pull a very small looking RAM stick or what have you out of his pocket, and he'll slide it across the table.
What is this?
That's the majority of the information I was able to lift.
And are you talking, and just double checking, you're still talking to Mr. X?
Yes.
He nods. Starts looking at it on one of his digital laptops. And of course, laptops are so advanced now, they're just literally a screen that pops up in the air.
The corrupted files are probably what you're looking for, but I haven't been able to make much headway.
Indeed, and we've been trying to figure out some ourselves. We have a couple of our lead analysts going on it right now. Apparently, there was a lot of footage that was destroyed before the facility was, shall we say, wiped. Apparently, they were trying to cover their tracks, so to speak. We also found that the power core sent a spike wave throughout most of the machinery, corrupting about a good 95% of the data files. So what we have here is pretty much all we have. Apparently, they were trying to regrow limbs in the heat of battle, and apparently they succeeded somehow, but they had to stop due to complications. What I want to know is what in the hell they did to actually get that to work.
It might have something to do with whatever attacked the guards.
Possibly. We did see a couple of test tubes down there. One said Project Cain, the other said Project Able, but there were other chambers down there. Group 1 found a solid steel door that was about 12 inches thick, and something tore its way out of it. And he shows you the pictures. Basically, it's a big solid steel metal door, and it's got these huge claw marks just tearing out of it.
Well, it would seem you have presented, or at least you've put me into the first situation where I can't explain what's going on here.
How does it feel? To not be able to explain away what you see.
Don't know yet. I suppose we'll have to figure out if it bleeds first.
Well, I can tell you in my years of experience, Mr. Banks, just about everything bleeds, except ghosts. But they can be hurt in other ways.
I suppose I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
Indeed you shall. Well then, why don't you go ahead and take the rest of this particular night off? I don't think I'll have any more requests going around until we find out what's going on in the mountains there, until we get this police problem solved.
Oh, Jenny's friend's making trouble?
She's not much her friends per se. It's actually the chief of police I'm worried about. I think due to some investigation I've been conducting, I think he may be being controlled by one of the vampires in this city, and that needs to end in some way. I'm working on it as we speak, but it's a little bit hard to track some of these suckers down.
Cain and Abel. Something out of the Bible, isn't it?
Yes, apparently one of the projects was nicknamed Cain, the other was nicknamed Abel. And as you know, we have a member here whose name is Abel. We found him as a floater. I'm wondering if he was actually one of the ones in that vat. Still looking into it, but nonetheless, it could be. If he is, that means he would have some potential to help us with our genetics.
Well, I suppose it would explain some of his sponginess.
Indeed. Something shook him up when he went down there. He hasn't told anyone exactly what was down there, but something seems to have shaken him. He saw something in the hole before anyone else got there. Apparently, when the shadow came by and tore one of the power core in half, he chased it down the hallway and continued to pursue it. It was about a good maybe 10, 15 minutes before anyone else got to him, and he was just standing in front of the hole looking at it.
He is honest and yet still suspicious.
Indeed.
Not sure how he pulls that off.
It's a rare talent. Nonetheless, you've all proved yourselves very highly, and you've definitely ranked up in this level of our organization. As I said, Mr. Banks, you're welcome to help yourself to the armory when you can. Anything we have that you need, we can upgrade.
Oh, I'm sure I'll think of something.
Of course. That'll be all, Mr. Banks, unless you have anything to add.
No, I think this was fruitful, all things considered.
Mr. Banks, you hear a tiny little whisper kind of pop into your head. He knows something you don't, and he knows that you have deceived him. Be careful with this one.
He'll get up out of his chair and he'll leave the room.
Right, you leave the room. You send the data to Watcher. And you feel that little lock click that he had done last time kind of unclick. And you feel a little bit of a relief. But the voice is a little bit off-putting. But it doesn't seem to bother you the rest of the night.
It's still not going to stop Nathan from going through diagnostics, trying to figure out what that could have been.
So you're running diagnostics checks on all of your upgrades, and so to speak?
Yes.
You check through, and you think you see a glitch here or there, but there's nothing that's really popping out at you. Occasionally, you think you see a ghost in the machine, but you run it, you run the diagnostics, you run all the checks, you've done it 100 times. Everything seems to be fine.
Well, suppose it's time we try a different approach.
And what kind of approach would that be?
He's not sure how visible this is going to be, but Nathan is going to... He's going to begin research on mediums.
Interesting. Yeah, you start doing research on mediums, and you find all the information you think you'd find. If you go through Section 9's info that they give you, they can give you a little bit of information on.
He's trying to avoid Section 9
Okay.
for now.
If you avoid Section 9, the only thing you're really going to find on that is just kind of the surface stuff. Nothing really massively valuable, but possession does come up quite a bit, and communication is also seems to be a possibility.
No. The problem he has is that he's wondering if this was a ghost, because Mr. X just so happened to mention the ghost.
Well, it could be. There's a lot of information that's definitely pointing to that.
So his present interest is finding someone who can give him a definitive yes or no. The problem, obviously, is finding one that's not a quack.
Indeed. Who to find? You start looking around, and there's only one that really stands out to you that seems like they could give you any sort of clue. And that is there is a older fellow in the Asian market area of San Francisco that appears to be very knowledgeable one of the occult. He is about the only one that looks any sort of reasonable as to give you the information you seek.
Don't get me wrong. I just don't like one-sided conversations. And he'll take that address and he'll head out.
All right. You head out into the rainy night of San Francisco. And you eventually find yourself at a small trinket shop in Chinatown. It is about as mystical and as kind of creepy as it can get in terms of like occult shops, if you would. It's got a lot of Asian and a little bit of Western kind of occult looking things, but other than that, it just looks like a creepy, uh, like herbal slash potion slash magical shop.
A whole bunch of small boxes lining the walls, and you wonder what's in each one.
Mm-hmm.
Nathan is probably so far out of the clientele, it's not even funny. He's probably a head taller than everyone else, large overcoat.
Interestingly,
he's there to rob the place.
Interestingly enough, there is no clientele here at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Huh. Well, I imagine the shopkeeper is already judging him silently.
The shopkeeper looks identical to Pai Mei from Kill Bill. He is wearing a black and white kind of Chinese martial arts robe, if you will. And he has a very long mustache and beard that goes down. It's white, kind of a very thin Fu Manchu kind of look. And then he has white hair bundled up into a samurai kind of bow tail. And he looks at you and he says, "Ah, welcome. How can I help you today, sir?"
And Nathan's just looking at him. Doesn't say anything just yet. He just looks.
He looks back.
His eyes kind of go a little bit lower and then up again. If my research is correct, you should be able to tell me.
He kind of strokes his mustache a little bit and he says, "You have been a vassal for one of the undead. Those who have not passed on yet. One of them has spoken through you. He entered your mind and spoke with you. Yes?"
What kind of signals is this guy giving off? Although I have suspicion.
He's a rock. Yep, gotcha. He says, he's basically like almost no emotion whatsoever.
No emotion on his face. Nothing subtle.
Like when he started talking to you about the spirit, he kind of smiled a bit, but that was it. It was less of a smile of ha ha ha. It was more of a smile of like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about.
So not only is he saying something that would be considered ridiculous, he's being 100% serious.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't have a lot of digital signals going on either, probably.
He has absolutely zero digital signals going on in this place. Actually, if you look around in this whole place, there is literally no digital signals whatsoever anywhere. And this is the year 2077, so that's weird.
I never thought I would need something off the shelf, but
Would
all
you
right.
like something to keep the spirits away? That is something that is easy enough to do.
It's trying to give me advice. He, she, I'm not really sure. I'm just trying to figure out why.
Well, often when spirits die, if they stay around, they are trapped in an extremely emotional state. Anger, sadness, regret, love, any kind of emotional state that one could consider themselves into. If it is felt hard enough at the time of death, the spirit will stay behind at times. Perhaps they are trying to simply help you out of their own emotional trapment, or perhaps they knew you in your life.
All right. I've had friends die, but this hasn't really happened before.
It is often not a common as thing as you might think. The world of the dead must never commune with the world of the living. That is their rule, and they stick to it very highly. If they do not stick to it, they are turned into currency. Or they must possess a human and merge with them. That is the only way they can walk amongst this plane.
Well, then, first things first, he's going to. What would make sense? Oh, hell with it. A $50 bill. And he'll put that on the table, the counter, if you will. How about this then? We do something to get a name. That's a fine start.
I can do that. Takes the $50.
I give you something for your trouble. And in return, I have a little bit of discretion.
You wish to know the name of who was speaking to you. I could do that. He looks square at you right in the eyes, and his eyes all of a sudden roll back, and they're completely white now. And you can see his eyes kind of twitch a bit. He tilts his head like he's listening to something. About 10 minutes go by. And then his eyes roll back into focus. Jonathan Taylor. I believe he was one of your ex-squad mates you saw die. Operation Hammerhead? He raises an eyebrow, and to clarify, yes, he got all of that information right so far.
Well, I guess I'm 2 for 2 today.
He was killed by a man named Jacob, and he seeks Jacob's death. He was wondering if you could help. At least that was what I got.
All right. All right. Well, these are the things that I can do. I'll need to think about this.
Of course. Come on back anytime.
He kind of like half bows, like he doesn't really know what he's doing there,
Hmm.
and
He half bows
he'll
back.
he'll leave.
Indeed. Have a good night, Mr. Banks. My shop is always open. And as you proceed out into the night, we'll go ahead and end the session there. But you're wondering that throughout that entire encounter, you never did once tell him your name. Thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. This has been another session of San Francisco by Night. Hunter the Vigil.